Hello everyone, welcome back to Reverse Engineering Linux 32-bit applications. In this video, we're going to go over some of the preliminaries and get you started on this journey. So first of all, you might ask the question, why are we doing this? Why do we want to learn how to do some reverse engineering or reversing? So I thought it might be helpful to start with a definition of reversing or reverse engineering. This is just my simple definition. It's the art of determining how something works without access to the original design specifications or code. So I call it an art because yes, it's a science, but there's also some art to this. Why do you want to do this? You want to do this in order to find flaws in our case, software. That's kind of the focus of this course. But there are other reasons that you might want to do some reverse engineering. So perhaps you're trying to clone a product, or maybe you just want to know how things work. You're kind of the typical hacker and you like to know how things work in the world around you. Another reason that you might want to do some reverse engineering is to mitigate malicious programs. You want to investigate some malicious code, a worm or a virus, etc., and try to figure out how it works so that you can disable it. So, these are a couple of reasons that you might want to do reverse engineering. We are primarily going to focus on the first one, finding flaws in software. Now, I'm not saying that you won't learn some things in this course that you could use for, things like malware analysis or other reverse engineering areas, but that is not the primary focus of our class. So getting started, we need to install some software. And we'll start by installing a couple of debuggers. By far, the most prominent reverse engineering debugger out there is IDA Pro. Now, it is an awesome debugger. Unfortunately, if you're just trying to get started and maybe you're just trying to investigate some things with IDA Pro, it's not terribly cheap. However, they did recently update their freeware version of the product, and they did include a couple of additional things that weren't in there up until literally a few months ago. So if 2 years ago you were trying to do reverse engineering on the cheap, things would be a little bit different than they are today. We'll also talk about everyone's favorite debugger on the Linux platform, and that's GDB, the GNU debugger. This is not a debugger that's set up to do reverse engineering. This is more of a typical programmer's debugger. But we'll talk about it because it might already be installed and it's widely used. And then there's Evans debugger. Evans debugger is an attempt to create something similar to some debuggers that are available on the Windows platform like Immunity, but have it available on Linux. Now, the goal with Evans debugger is to have it be multi-platform, although at this time I believe it is just for Linux. Other things you might want to consider, you might want to install some virtualization software. If you are, say, reversing malware in particular, you want to put that thing in its own little sandbox. So the best way to do that is to install Linux inside of a virtual machine. if you do go this route, or perhaps you are running Linux inside a virtual machine on a Windows platform, you're going to want to install all of the reversing tools that we're talking about in that virtual machine as well. Some other things you're going to want to install. You're going to want to install Python 2, which is likely pre-installed, and also Python 3. You'll likely do some bash scripting. Again, bash is probably pre-installed for you. And you can go ahead and install this package called Build Essential. And what this does is it has all of the common things that you will need, such as a compiler and the make utility, etc., in order to build programs. So you'll need that in order to complete this course. Now, we could just say, all right, at the very start, we're going to install every possible thing that we need for this class. And then you would spend a lot of time installing things and not getting on with it, getting to the fun stuff where we're actually going to show you what these vulnerabilities look like and how you can play with them. So instead of doing that, along the way, we will install some additional applications such as fuzzers. I mentioned those in the introductory video. We will also install some sample applications. We will install some decompilers that will allow us to go from an executable back to a C program, and a few miscellaneous things along the way. So let's go ahead and get started. So I've just brought up a browser here, and I'm going to go ahead and just type in IDA Pro free, and it brings me right here to the Hexrays site, and it says which version of IDA Pro free would you like to download? And I would say I would like the freeware for Linux, please. So it's going to download that. It's fairly small, so it should be pretty quick. In the past, they did not have the Mac and Linux versions of IDA available for free. And it was also a very, very old download. I want to say it was less than version 5. So this installs as an executable. So you're going to want to bring up a command prompt. And if you go to your downloads, now I've already downloaded this, and that's why I have 2 copies of this file. But notice the one I just downloaded is not executable. So you're going to have to do a chmod plus X. On that. If I rerun my ls command, now you'll see that that's executable, and I can go ahead and run it. Doesn't really matter which one I run. Now in my case, it's already been installed. So I'll just show you what it looks like. I'll go forward, accept the license agreement, go forward. It says, where would you like to put it? I'll just put this somewhere else. And that's it. It's done. It's been installed. I'm not going to show you how to use it just yet. We'll do that in a future video. So today I just want to focus on installing a couple of applications. So now that that's installed, I'll go ahead and talk about another debugger, GDB. So GDB is likely already there. Let's see if I say GDB and I hit tab, it says which GDB do you want to run. I could also do which GDB, and it shows me that yes, GDB is installed and running on this computer. So nothing to do there. And then we have Evans Debugger. So I'll go back to my browser and I'll just type in Evans Debugger. It brings me to this GitHub. And it tells me a little bit more about this debugger. It was inspired by OllyDB, which I think I might have said Immunity Debugger earlier. OllyDB and Immunity Debugger are very similar products. So if you go through our Windows 32-bit class, you will see both of those. And it tells you how to build this. And it says that in Ubuntu, which is what I'm running, they already have packages for this. So before I bother to trouble myself with downloading the source code, I suppose I could just do this. Apt search on debugger. And I got a ton of results. So let me go ahead and make my life easier. I'm going to take that, I'm going to pipe it to grep, ignoring case, Evan. Okay, so it said, I don't see that. So let's go ahead and look here. And here it's telling me what I need to install in order to get Evans Debugger. Now notice I'm going to install CMake, Build Essential, that's the platform I was talking about earlier, and a couple of libraries. So I'm going to make my life simple, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy this, go to my terminal window, paste it, I'm going to install some software here. Now, of course, it goes without saying that I'm going to use Git to clone this repository on GitHub. So if you don't have Git, don't forget to install that as well as the things that are listed here. All right, so that's done. Go back to my browser. I want to clone this. I'm going to make my terminal window a little bit smaller so that I can actually see both this and my instructions. And I'm also going to change to my home directory before I do this git clone. So I'll do my git clone command. And it says, hey, git's not installed. All right, sudo apt install git. So you might say, gee, Phil, why don't you have git installed on your computer? I actually recently re-imaged this computer, and that's kind of why. But okay, so now it's installed. And it's cloning it. I will change to Evans Debugger. I will make this directory build, change to build, run cmake, ... And now I will run make. So cmake is used to essentially create the make files. And from there, I run the regular make. And it's going to go out and it's going to build this program for me. So the nice thing about Evans Debugger, it's a native Linux app. Obviously, we're building it right now. And it also works with Linux applications. Not necessarily just 32-bit applications, by the way. It'll also work with 64-bit when we get to that. So, a nice tool, certainly at a nice price. You can't beat free open source software. So it'll take a little while for this to build. While that's going on, I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that I have some of my other tools installed. So let me go ahead and create another new terminal. Just drag that over here and also make this one full screen for now. And I want to make sure I have Python installed. And I want to know which version of Python I have. It's probably Python 2. And the question is, do I have Python 3? And I do. So what if I didn't have this installed? If I didn't have Python 3 installed, it's pretty simple to install apt-get. Let me do this for you. Sudo apt install Python 3. And it says, hey, you already have Python 3. We also have Build Essential that I talked about earlier in this video, and that is installed. So we have pretty much everything we need. We have Bash, which is the default shell for most Linuxes. That's installed. So we're pretty much good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and close that terminal and see how we're doing with our build of Evans Debugger. So we're about 2/3 of the way through it. Once that's done, I'll go ahead and run it real quick for you just to show you what it looks like. So we're just getting started. We haven't even really done anything yet. We're just installing some tools, but it's already an exciting process. I'm really looking forward to this class. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully folks will learn a lot from this reversing class and this whole series of classes that we have for reversing. Just as a reminder, if you are looking at malicious code in particular, you should probably set up a virtual machine running Linux. Personally, I like VirtualBox. I know some people like VMware instead. Both of them will work. So there's nothing wrong with VMware if that's what your office runs, and if that's what you prefer. I just like the idea that I can run the full version of VirtualBox without having to spend any money. Some of you may not know this, but there is a advanced or commercial version of VirtualBox that is available for free if you are a school or some other kind of educational institution. So just FYI, it has some nice advanced features there. All right, so it appears that my build has finished. And if I'm lucky, if I run EDV, it in fact came up. So voila, we have a nice debugger that's been installed, and we can use that for our reverse engineering in addition to IDA Pro. All right, well, that's all for this video. In some future videos, we will show you how to actually use some of these tools, and we'll start getting through the different kinds of vulnerabilities that exist and having some fun with them. So I look forward to that, and I will see you soon.